The Olympics are concluding today, and it's been 16 days filled with joy, disappointment, mastery, strength. And no doubt that these athletes are in amazing shape. They have not only physical strength, they have a mental toughness that is required to reach their level of competition. Now, most of us have not risen to that level of physical strength, but building our spiritual strength requires no push-ups and is accessible to all of us, which is a good thing. We have spiritual push-ups to do, but not physical push-ups, thank goodness. So we continue our adventure of the 12 powers. The 12 powers being not really separate, but helpful to look at individually, because then we may be in a situation or in a moment and saying, what power could I call on right now to really balance or equalize or help me get to the next place that I want to be? And that's what's really great about the 12 powers, even though they're elements of the greater whole. They are really helpful tools I find, to say, oh, more wisdom is what I need to call on right now, or strength is what I need to call on right now, or renunciation. Woo, we're almost there at renunciation. Everyone's favorite power. When we get there, you'll know why people like to avoid it. But anyway, so many years ago, a dear friend of mine was in the midst of a complicated divorce and was also going through a professional inquiry. So things were pretty cattywampus in her life. And everything seemed upside down. And even though she had a very deep faith, there was times where it was tough. And one day I told her, in the midst of all of this, I said, even though you're on rough seas, I'll be the mast on the ship. And you can just hold on, and I'll just be here, steady, for you in these times. And we'll make it through. And we did. And as the years have gone by, we've traded places, off back and forth, of someone's being the mast and someone's holding on, and we trade places. And it's really helpful to know that someone or something is that stable place, to know the deeper truth, that someone's holding that assurance that things are going to be okay and turn out right side up when everything seems upside down. And this vision of stability and strength has become a touchstone for me, and a reminder not only that we have strength that we can lend to others, but that strength lies within. At that time, it really was helpful to have that, and now it's become more and more of an internal strength. So in our awesome book, Divine Audacity, Reverend Linda writes, spiritual strength is our capacity to stand undaunted in the midst of shifting circumstances, to act courageously and stay the course. To stand undaunted in the midst of shifting circumstances. I like that. So the first element, according to Linda, of strength is stability. Well, where do we find stability? Some of us find it in routine, or in data and information, or in the support and belief of family members or friends. That is a good start. But when you're on the balance beam of life, with all the time you've spent with coaches, and with all the spectators cheering you on, and with your teammates giving you their all, it's still not going to keep you up on that balance beam. And this is when we draw on our spiritual strength that comes from a deep place within. This is when we stand up and say, I have nothing to fear. I have all that is within me to face just this challenge. I have been coached, encouraged, I've practiced. All that I must do now is stay calm, focused, anchored in the truth of my divinity. Stand tall and work with whatever comes my way. Now I know that I make it sound easy, but the gymnasts that we saw in the Olympics, they made the balance beam look easy, right? But how did they make it look easy? They did it with practice. So we'll just practice, continue to stay practiced, to remember when we start to get unbalanced, to come back and know the stability, to know the truth. The next part of strength is courage. Now, courage, according to Merriam-Webster, is the ability to do something you know is difficult or dangerous. Now, we often cite soldiers or public safety personnel or someone like that as courageous. And that's true. They do courageous things. They do things that they know is difficult or dangerous. But what about the everyday courage of a child who says, someone in authority is hurting me? Or of a teenager who stands up to their peers and says, you know, you're bullying someone and that's not okay. Or the college student who follows their dreams instead of joining the family law firm. Or the person in a relationship to say, I realize my behavior has caused harm and I apologize and I'm going to endeavor to change. Or the inventor who puts everything on the line to create the next life-saving gadget. Aren't they also courageous? So courageous can be about big heroic acts, but it also is often about those not so noticed moments where someone takes a choice to stand up to the status quo or to what is expected and stand in a bigger truth of what they know is right or what they know is theirs to do. I read this week about a woman wrestler from India. She became the first person from her country to medal in this year's games. And many people in India hadn't even heard of Sakshi Malik until she won the bronze on Wednesday. They woke up to Twitter exploding about her. Sakshi comes from a state in India that is very patriarchal, and so much so that there are 879 women per 1,000 men. 879 per 1,000. So of course now they have, because they get rid of girl babies, because having a boy baby is better, and so of course now they have a problem because they don't have enough wives. So you know there's a natural balance to all these things. So anyway, she comes from this place where girls are not valued as much as boys. And she's faced, of course, ridicule because she's doing wrestling, which, of course, is considered a man's sport. And she, you know, wears shorts, oh my goodness, while she's practicing because, you know, wrestling. And she says that her family has been incredibly supportive, but, of course, this hasn't always been easy. But by following her dreams and not giving in to those cultural pressures that she could have easily, I'm sure at many points in her life, succumbed to, she's helping lead the charge to show the value of women in her country and to change those social norms. The Twitter, the Prime Minister or somebody in India they've been working on this social change kind of argument to say, trying to say raising a girl is a good thing, which is good that they're working on this social change thing, and the Twitter in that handle has shifted on Twitter over the day after she won this medal, raise a girl, get a medal, and so she is, by being herself, by having that courage, she's changing things. That's really neat. And the third part of strength is tenacity. I like that word. I really like that word. And the definition, one of the definitions from Merriam-Webster is not easily stopped or pulled apart. Some people would call it stubbornness, and that is part of tenacity and strength. Though too much stubbornness, of course, would be using our powers not for good, right? Remember how we can use our powers in any way. So when I think of tenacity, I think of an inventor tweaking, trying, improving, gathering data, tweaking some more. I think of my sister practicing baskets from the three-point line every day before basketball practice. I think of a musician practicing hours a day to achieve mastery. And then once they achieve mastery, they keep practicing every day for hours. These are just outer expressions of a fire that burns within them. They have a belief that they can improve and that they have somewhere worth going. And even in the face of seeming defeat, they reach inside and find the strength to give it one more go. As many of you know, I love to go to the library and just see what falls off the shelf. Not literally falls off the shelf, but just says, here I am, reaping. And there was this book that I'd seen several times, and then I finally took home a couple weeks ago. And then I actually picked it up this week because, of course, I go to the library and have stacks, so it takes me a while to get through them all. And this is the book called Find Me Unafraid. And it's the real story of a man named Kennedy who grew up in one of the slums of Nairobi. He had a very rough life, filled with too much violence and not enough food. One day, after discovering his friend had taken his own life from the frustration of endless poverty, Kennedy bought a soccer ball. He brought together his closest friends and told them that he wanted to change things, starting with a soccer ball. He and 6 other people who came to that meeting, they listed various aspects of things that they wanted to change. Sanitation, violence against women, poverty, and more. They brought more people, and soon they started their projects. They got together and went on cleaning sprees, cleaning up even, making things better in their neighborhood. They realized they didn't need someone outside of their slum to come in and fix things, which is kind of what they had thought was the way it needed to be. They said, no, we're going to do something. So they cleaned up. They gathered boys and girls to play soccer together. They set up microloans that people paid back by paying forward, lending to the next person. They created a theater troupe that performed plays and gave a voice to their youth, and also educated about important social topics. The theater nerd in me would like to remind you that throughout history, theater has been used to educate people about important social topics. And so they're educating about violence and about HIV/AIDS and all sorts of things that people aren't getting good information about. And Kennedy became the de facto leader of his era. They called him mayor, even though, of course, he was not an elected official. They don't have those in his area. He was contacted by a college student from Colorado who wanted to study abroad and work with his theater company. So Jessica came to Kenya and insisted on living in that same area as the people she was working with, instead of in a safer, more appropriate next neighborhood over that had amenities like toilets. She knew that to really connect with and understand the people that she was working with, she had to be there and live that same life with them. So that whole semester, Jessica and Kennedy worked together, and then Jessica went back to college. And then there was an uprising in Kenya, and this put Kennedy's life in danger because, of course, he was a leader, and that made him dangerous to the people in charge. And so they managed through lots of adventures to get him into an American university, and he flew to safety. And for some stories like this, that's the end of the story. Yay, he lived happily ever after. But that is not even close. They started applying for grants. This was Jessica's senior year. She didn't know what was next for her. This was Kennedy's freshman year. What are they going to do? They returned that summer. They had managed to find a grant. And they built a free school for girls that would be ran by locals, taught by locals, right there in their neighborhood. They managed to have all the supplies, uniforms, the whole shebang. And they had volunteer teaching groups come in from other places and help train these teachers so they'd have the best modes to teach. But that, of course, was still not the end. They went back to America for school and those kind of things. But the momentum continued. They came back every chance they had. And they built, and they can, of course, once you start these things, funding continues to happen. And they built a clinic. They built a dormitory because some of the girls were having, it's harder to learn when you don't live in a safe place. So they built a dormitory. They built a community center. They built water distribution. They built a bigger school. And it goes on and on and on, and they continue to do this work. And when I finished this book on Friday, I thought, well, isn't that great that I finally read this book right when I was doing this talk about strength? Even though it's been like a month and a half that this book has been hollering at me from the shelf at the library. Because these two showed consistent courage, balancing personal safety and continuing to work what they knew was theirs to do, and applying for grants and giving speeches. And they found stability in each other's commitment and in the momentum they were creating in their community. And they had this unwavering certainty of their quest. That can bring you stability as well. And most of all, they were so tenacious and continue to be so tenacious. They believed that there was more they could do, and they just kept taking the next step. And no matter when things weren't going the way that Jessica had worked it out on her spreadsheet, they just kept working with it, and it, filled in, and they did the next thing, and they did the next thing. And it did. It continued to work out. And there's the part of the story that I forgot to put in here. To build these buildings, they had to get families to agree to move so that they would have a space to build these buildings. The first thing was only 10 families, which was tough, but they got through it. It continues to go and go and go until hundreds of families are volunteering to move so they can continue to expand this compound. That's how much they have had people believe in and buy into what they're doing. And this is in just one of the slums in Nairobi. Apparently there's numerous. Their model is being replicated by not some outside group, but by advocates of their own community in other slums around. It's amazing what these two have managed to do. Lots of strength. Lots of tenacity. Woo! So, how do we exercise our spiritual strength muscle? Well, like an athlete, we must practice and be prepared. Now, I have found it helpful to know that there are things that help me feel grounded and help me restabilize in rough times. Like I said, that vision of the mast and the ship. But for you, whatever that is that could help you be stable, could be sitting under your favorite tree or going for a hike. It could be taking a deep breath and remembering a moment where you felt safe and confident. It could be talking with a friend who will give you unconditional support. Whatever it is, practicing calling on your spiritual ability to be grounded, even in minor situations, can help it become second nature. You know, when you're in the grocery store and they're out of your favorite whatever, and you're like, nah, right? This is a moment to remember to be centered. Because when we practice on those little irritations, we get better at it. And then we can use it on the big ones, right? And using it on the big ones is really important. But, I mean, we don't, you know, I don't know about you, but there's been moments when I've been a little out of whack because the store didn't have whatever it was I was looking for. So to practice being courageous, we take time in the silence, affirming our commitment to be true to ourselves. We notice injustice, and we call on our wisdom and strength to take action. You know? What is mine to do in this situation? We use our wisdom to help us discern that. And how do we practice tenacity? We don't give up on ourselves or what we believe in. We follow through. We keep our commitments. We draw on the deeper truth of who we have come here to be. Whether it's like an Olympic athlete who knows that being the best is where they're supposed to be and they keep going. Whether it's like Kennedy and Jessica continuing to build and make the world a better place. Or whether it's like a small kid learning how to ride a bike. You know, we just keep going. We don't give up. There are times, yes, when it seems like there may not be much strength left. And these are the time, friends, where we just go deeper. Remember that we have a whole toolbox of spiritual tools. Strength is one of them. Helps us find our inner stable place. But maybe we also need to add a dash of understanding, or add a dash of renunciation, or wisdom, or love. And it's okay to say, you know, I need a hug today. So find that inner stable place and remember that you do truly have the strength within.